Hello, and welcome to another Whisky Talks. Again, I am here in my garden, listening to the lovely birdsong, having a nip, and chatting to you lovely people about stuff that's related to whiskey. Maybe it's not, maybe it is, who knows, we're just having a little chat. But one thing that I was thinking about, and I've written in my little notepad here, and it's from the previous Whisky Talks, and it was about people that say that it all tastes the same, and it got me thinking about when I was that person, because I definitely was that person. I definitely thought that whiskey tasted all the same. So it got me thinking about making this video, which is getting into whiskey and my experience of getting into whiskey. So my experience of whiskey and getting into whiskey was a reluctant one. Was one where I didn't want to get into whiskey. The reason being that my dad used to drink Lagavulins and Lafroigs and stuff, and I think I had a taste of Lagavulin when I was quite young, and it just, wow, I just thought, if that's what whiskey tastes like, I'm out. I'm totally out. I was just not ready for that kind of massive level of smoke and peat and alcohol, the burn, just everything. I was like, oh no, the oiliness. I was like, no, that's definitely not for me. And I never really got into it from there, because that my first experience was a bad one, because my dad introduced the wrong whiskey. And then my girlfriend got me in, or she was into whiskey a little bit, so she got me a couple. We had I think it was like a Highland Park and some other stuff, and I started drinking like some black bottles in the pub. You know, I'd have the odd little black bottle with my pint, and that was all good. And then my friend Wallace, hi Wallace, if you're watching, he bought me my first malt, which was a Ben Romach, and it's a weird one. Like, do you know what? I've never had a Ben Romach since, so I need to try it again. But he bought me it, and I knew I should have enjoyed it, but it didn't quite hit the spot for me. I was like, when I was drinking it, I was like, oh yeah, this is like, it felt like it was, well, at that point, you know, I wasn't making that much money. I was like, oh, this is an expensive thing, I should be enjoying it. But it was not a chore drinking it, but it definitely wasn't as enjoyable as like if I had a Ben Romach now. I couldn't quite appreciate it. And why is that? Why couldn't I appreciate it? And I just think that for me anyway, my taste buds, I had to subject them to whiskey for them to get used to it, and then to fully appreciate it. And I think it's the same with actual whiskey drinkers. So it's the same with me right now. Like, everybody knows that if you watch the whiskey trials, that my comfort zone is the Speysides and the sweeter ones and the Highlands and some of the Lowlands. And but the Islas are the ones that kind of make me, you know, a little bit uncomfortable. But I've been changing that. I've been trying to get into the smokier and the peatier ones. And in so doing, I have this new appreciation for them, and I'm definitely getting into them. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that I'm a massive Lafroig fan, but I can actually drink one now and I can appreciate it. I love Bowmore. The Bowmore 12 is one of my go-to malts. I like Kilchoman. I like Bruichladdich. You know, so these Islay malts have like opened up to me now that I started off on the right path with the ones that I was maybe more comfortable with, the sweeter kind of ones, and then now I'm growing my taste buds. And I think it's the same for people that are just starting out in whiskey and trying to get into whiskey. It's not necessarily like something that clicks with you straight away. I'm sure it is for some people. I'm sure some people just like drink a Lafroig and go, oh my god, this is the best drink ever, or a Speyside or whatever. But for me, it was a definite transition, because I guess at that point I was more beer. I like beer more. I like my Guinness. I like my ales. I liked wine at that point as well. I liked red wine, and now for some reason I just can't really drink red wine. It doesn't float my boat. So yeah, what I'm saying is that if you're getting into whiskey, if you're watching this and you're trying to get into whiskey, or you're watching this and you're like, all whiskey tastes the same to me, just give it some time. Keep going. Honestly, you'll get to this point, I hope, where you can start to differentiate the flavors, you start to appreciate things more. But when you're doing it, one good thing for me was sipping it, like really, really small sips. Like, don't take a gulp like you normally would, like a vodka Coke or a pint or anything like that. Just treat it with respect, for, you know, and you should be treating it with respect anyway, but, you know, very small sips. So it's only just, so you could almost let it evaporate on your tongue. That's you know, a good way to start your tasting experience. Really small sips. I'd probably say don't let it wash around your mouth in the beginning. You can experiment with that later on. I even now I tend to just let it wash to the left and to the right and maybe underneath my tongue. I don't do this whole mouthwashy thing that you'll see some whiskey YouTubers do. It doesn't really work for me. I find it quite overpowering, and, you know, it can be good for sometimes getting the aftertaste, but the actual initial taste is just lost in a big blast of, like, a mouthwash Listerine alcohol burst, you know. So it doesn't work for me, but, you know, if it works for them, then fine. The other thing is, don't be afraid to, like, experiment with water. I think water is your friend, especially when you're beginning. And if you're lucky enough to be trying cast strength ones and, you know, stronger ones, even this Glendronach I think is a 43. The 12's a 43. I think the 18's a 46 maybe. So yeah, a couple of drops, and then keep on adding them. If you're still not getting anything, just keep little drops. Let them fall off your fingers into the glass. One of the other things for me, actually, is getting into whiskey is the smell. I think, for instance, my sister doesn't like the smell of whiskey, but I think the more you smell it, the more, and if you let it sit in a glass, I think too often people like pour it and then go, right, smell it. Whoa, big alcohol vapors. But for instance, this one now, I'm not getting any alcohol vapors when I stick my face in the glass. I'll give it a swirl. Still none. I mean, this isn't a Glencairn or anything, so it's not focused on the nose. Just a nice tumbler. But even still, all I'm getting is just, like, for the most part, a nice sweet vanilla. So yeah, they're my kind of tips for getting into whiskey, and a lot about my experience of getting into whiskey. I'm sure, you know, people are different, so, you know, don't just, you know, if you try a Lafroig and you like it, then great. But, you know, try the other ones too. Don't just stick to the smoky peaty ones. So yeah, getting into whiskey, it can be a bit of a journey. I think it's worth it in the long term. And yeah, I hope you can all get to a point where you're drinking whiskey and really appreciating it, however that may be, with ice, Coke, or whatever. But, you know, if you can drink the different whiskies and you can taste the different things I can taste, then I'm happy for you.